Welcome to our workshop on judging awards and competition basics. It's our first of 3 workshops, and we'll have those in the next 4 weeks. So we are the Bionic Tigers. Now, who are the Bionic Tigers? We're a 6-year team. We got 14 people. We've won and or been nominated for every award. We've been winning Alliance Thin, winning Alliance First Pick, Finals Alliance Captain, everything in between. Last year we advanced to Worlds from third Inspire at Maryland State, and that's where that picture is from. As you can see, we are all very happy to have advanced. That was before Worlds got canceled. And so these workshops, the purpose of them is to impart the learning from our experiences and from what we've learned from other teams to you. So if you guys are a rookie team, give you guys a jump start over some of the stumbling blocks rookies normally get started or normally stumble on, and give you guys a toolbox to improve on. Other teams who may not be rookies, hopefully you guys can learn some great tips and tricks and just learn from our experiences. The goal of this is to take away some of the confusion and help you spend more time building robots and winning awards and less time trying to figure out what's going on. So today will be about competition basics, judging, and the engineering notebook. Now, if you guys want to ask questions, all you have to do is go into the chat function. It's on the bottom bit of your screen. If you're not familiar with Zoom, icon chat, you can open that up and type a question. Our moderators will curate the questions, and at certain points in the presentation, we will have question breaks where the moderators will relay your question to us, and we will answer them. And if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to contact us. We're on Twitter at BionicTigersFTC, and we also have an email, BionicTigers10464@gmail.com. We're also going to be supplying you guys with a recording of this and a PDF of the slide deck afterwards. Even after this is all over, middle of the season, we're always happy to help with anything, whether it be building your robot, programming, bugs, fundraising, feedback on your engineering notebook, etc., or stuff that changes between now and your first competition, because things are a little uncertain right now, and we really want to help you all through it.
Okay, so a really big part of competitions is judging, and it can be pretty daunting if you don't know what to expect. So we're just going to give you a quick overview and some tips that we've learned. So basically, judging always happens before the actual robot competition. Depending on the event, it either happens the day of or the night before. In each judging room, you'll have 2 to 3 judges, as well as your entire student team. No mentors are allowed, and your robot. So your time will be split among 15 minutes in that room. You will give an uninterrupted 5-minute presentation, and then 10 minutes will be spent as a Q&A session from the judges. So the first 5 are completely yours, but depending on the judges, they may cut you off at exactly 5 minutes or give you more of a polite tap on the table to let you know your time's up. Either way, it's pretty important to practice over and over so your presentation is as close to 5 minutes as possible. Okay, so a good thing to remember is that not everyone has to talk, both during the presentation or answering questions. It's really good to get a variety of people talking, but don't stress about everyone getting a word in. One thing that we have done in the past is that at the start of our presentation, we go down the line and quickly introduce ourselves, just stating name, what subteam we're on, and what our focus is. And this kind of gives, it takes up some time, but it definitely gives that it forms that short personal connection with the judges. Judges have all kinds of backgrounds. Some are FIRST alumni and know exactly how FIRST works, but some are simply engineers that aren't completely versed in the FTC world. So you should be prepared to answer technical and non-technical questions. In your presentation, we recommend to hit topics that show how well-rounded your team is and what you're proud of. Okay, so be prepared to demonstrate your robot. You can do this during your presentation if you have a specific part that you want to talk about, or some judges may ask how different parts of your robot works. So something we've experienced is to have the team know the generals about the other sub-teams, because there was this one time at a competition, a judge asked a specific team member a question. And although this is very unlikely, after that, we really made sure to keep that in mind. But otherwise on our team, we generally have each team member be an expert very loosely, in a certain field so they can step in if a question like that is asked. Practice. You should not be reading off anything in your presentation. One thing we have benefited from is doing mock question and answers with our mentors, so our team members can practice answering on such in a short time period. This is definitely a lot, but one of the most important things is to be genuine and speak from the heart. You guys are all here because you love STEM and robotics, so it's pretty easy to translate that into the answer.
So another thing to consider in judging is pit displays, because after the judging room, judges will come to your pits to talk to you. And so you need to have your pit look real nice. At every in-person competition, you're gonna have a pit area. Goals are to have to display for your team, it's a home base, and it's a place to repair and charge up your robot. The goal is to make it look professional and get across your message. Judges will go to your pit and ask questions, and a good pit display helps you answer those questions and show off what you're proud of. So here's an example of one of our pits. As you can see, we got a sponsor banner. That's mostly because we promised that to sponsors. We've got a nice banner up top that says Black Tigers. We have a black cloth tablecloth, which really, in my opinion, takes, if you're gonna do anything, do that, because it takes the professionalness of your pit up like a lot of levels. It looks so much better than just a bare table. And then we have some awards, and then most importantly, we have the pit boards. So next slide should talk about this a bit. So your pit displays are boards or whatever you want to make them out of. We usually use trifold because it's easy to obtain and very functional, and they should be very visual and help you get your message across to judges. So if you look on the left and the right, these are two good examples that we have of, or sorry, not the left and the right, the left and the middle, my bad. These are two examples of really good pit boards that I'm really proud of. One of our team members did these, and they're beautiful. They've got big numbers, they've got pictures, they're really nice to look at. On the right, we have an older pit board design, and there's a lot more text, and that's harder for, I mean, a judge is not going to look right up on that and read it, so it's not as useful as the ones on the left and middle.
All right, so this next section in the judging thing is awards. So these are the things that you can win at competitions to advance to the next level. So this is the advancement order of awards. The Game Manual 1 just came out today. So the advancement is actually different from last year. So Control has moved up in the ranking to number 13, where it was originally number 15. So in this presentation, we're going to be going through these from 15 to number 1. So Yeah.
So the design award is pretty much what it sounds like. It focuses on your robot's design. So the technical definition of the award is industrial design at its best. And so judges are looking for a robot that has like distinguished features from that stand out to them, and it looks good and professionally done. So a lot of this is going to be like taken from the professional world, and it's going to be more industrial style. And these robots will also have lots of design like documentation in the engineering notebook, and it's a lot of the judges' main reference for this award, other than the robot itself. And so they're also going to be looking out for a robot that's well thought out. It's not just going to be thrown together. And they're going to be looking for a robot that is effective at what it's trying to do, so accomplishing all the game tasks that it's meant to do. And then robots are also going to be observed on the field, so judges see how reliable and efficient a robot's design is. So if you claim in the judging room that your robot can score X amount of points, and they watch it on the field and you're not scoring as much as you say they are, you might not get scored as high on the design award.
So the Motivate Award is about sparking others to embrace the culture of FIRST. So this award is all about teaching others about FIRST in STEM, whether it's another FIRST team like FLL or FLL Junior, or members of your community. Some of the outreach events we have done in the past that connect to this award are volunteering at FIRST events. We help to start and mentor a couple of FLL teams, or even bringing our robot to community events and allowing kids there to, and sometimes adults, you know, it's fun for everyone, the opportunity to drive it, drive our outreach bot that we have. And even last year, we met one of our biggest sponsors at one of these community events. So it's really important to connect with the community in that way.
So this is the Control Award. The definition is mastering robot intelligence. So you can think of that as the robot's mind, in other words, the code. So this is gonna award you for having great code and programming. So to win this award, a separate submission is required. So it's like on a piece of paper that you can find on the website. So you've got to make sure, this is an important tip, you've got to make sure that your submission is correct for the specific competition you're going to, because some competitions might have specific, they might want something that another competition says that you don't have to have. So just be wary. You want your submission to be accepted. So judges will look at the Team's Control Award submission for documentation of the implementation of software, sensors, and mechanical control, all very important things in programming. They'll look for a team that utilizes advanced control techniques to improve the robot's performance and consistency. You can also turn in your code on a flash drive with the submission, but it's not likely they'll look at it. Thought that counts.
So the other like build heavy award is the Collins Aerospace Innovate Award, which is another award that is pretty much exactly what it sounds. So the Innovate Award's definition is bring great ideas from concept to reality. So judges are looking for something unique and innovative about your robot that a lot of other teams may not have or thought of, and it basically shows that you had a very creative way of thinking about how to solve the game. And so this award can address your entire robot. So maybe your whole robot is very unique, or it can address like one single spot, like mechanism on your robot. So it can address anything it wants. And then the team should also be able to explain how their design is unique and how they arrived at this unique solution and why are they proud of it. So in your presentation, you're going to want to like showcase why you came across this design and how it's unique and how it stands out.
Okay, so the Connect Award is connecting the dots between community first and the diversity of the engineering world. So a big part of this award is learning from professionals, both near and far. This is generally people in the STEM field who teach us different things, such as more effective ways to use a 3D printer, or even sitting in on some of our design sessions to offer input from their real jobs. real jobs, sorry, their real lives. We have a lot of sponsors connected to our team that don't give us any money, but instead give us time and wisdom, and help us really improve and give us some materials that make our robot better. So they are just as important as money donations.
So next up is the Think Award. And the definition of the award is removing engineering obstacles through creative thinking. It's often called the Nook Award because teams engineering content within their engineering notebook is the key reference for this award. Judges will look at how teams have grown through the season by improving their robot's design and function. So they really want to see the journey of your team and your robot. So how you went from brainstorming and ideas to prototypes to your first version and then iterating on that. So you really want to put every step of the design process in there and why you made certain decisions, especially if you have data to back it up. So if you're testing prototypes and you have one prototype and you have another prototype, test them out, get some data on how well they did, put that in a chart, put that in the engineering notebook. Really good for Think. Another really good thing for Think is math and science. They love any sort of math and science that can be applied to your robot. For example, one year we had to have a slanted hopper type thing to drop the game elements into a kind of bucket thing behind the robot. And so we did some physics calculations to figure out which material we had the lowest coefficient of friction. And we put that in the notebook. And that really helped us with the Think Award.
Next up is the Inspire Award. So the definition for this award is the team that best embodies the challenge of the First Tech Challenge program. So with that definition, you can tell it's pretty important. It's at the very top of the advancement order. So it's above even being the captain of the winning alliance. So this award is the highest honor a team can receive. Judges look for well-rounded teams who go above and beyond in all judged categories. So if you're like everything that we just talked about, all of these other awards, if you got all of that, you're probably a candidate for the Inspire Award. So teams who earn the Inspire Award set an example for others through their activities, performance, and displays of gracious professionalism.
So next up is the Judges Award. It's given to a team that does not fit into any of the other award criteria, but the judges feel should be recognized. This does not count for advancement at all. It's really just, to recognize a team that's really trying and really doing well, but doesn't necessarily fit into any of the other awards. Sometimes judges will give it certain names or themes like Rookie All-Star, Outstanding Field Performance, Obstacle Overcomers, person with a really great robot but doesn't have an engineering notebook. And like I said, this award is not in the advancement order.
So the Promote Award is one of 2 video awards that are not part of the advancement order and are completely optional for each competition. So this award is given to the team who creates a compelling video message for the public designed to change our culture and celebrate STEM. So for this award, you'll make a maximum of 60-second long video that is submitted generally 2 weeks ahead of the competition. It depends on each event. So during or before the season kickoff, first we'll release a prompt that the video is to be based around. It was not included with Game Manual 1, so it'll come out later. But last year the prompt was, how has FIRST changed you? So teams would create a video answering that question in different creative ways. It's super important for this award to follow music copyright laws because teams could be disqualified from the award if it's not credited properly. That's one of the biggest problems. So the Compass Award is the other video award, and it's very similar to the Promote Award. But this award recognizes an adult coach or mentor who has given outstanding guidance and support to a team throughout the year. So this video is also a maximum of 60 seconds, but there's no prompt. It's the same every year. It's just generally a thank you video for an adult that helps make your team happen. So since this isn't a prompt, you could even start working on that now. That's one of the few things that if you really wanted to make a video for the Compass Award, that's a good thing to work on over the summer, even though you don't really have any, you know, the year hasn't really started, but. Does anyone, any of our mods have any questions that want more in-depth answers?
So while our mod team gets stuff together, I see one that I really like. Does your team focus on one award specifically, or do you try to aim for more than one award? I would say we definitely aim for more than one award. We may focus our presentation on the awards that are higher up in the advancement, but we try to run our team in a way that we are very strong in every award. Part of that is we have a lot of team members and we're very experienced. But it's also good to try and be a really well-rounded team. That's how you win Inspire, which is kind of the goal, is to be as well-rounded as you can and to try in everything.
So the other question here is asking if it's still a good idea to go for the Promote Award even though it doesn't advance, or if it is a good idea, why is that?
So, great question. You can go for Promote Award because it shows the judges that you're applying yourself and that you're really trying. And you can also use it to show off some good aspects of your team. You can use footage of you doing outreach or building your robot. It also humanizes you a little bit. I guess humanizes may not be the right word, in the judges' minds, and kind of helps them get familiar with you.
Another thing with the Promote Award I want to add is that the name of it is Promote Award, so it's like promoting STEM. So you can also use that as a promotional material to the public if you wish.
And even though it's not part of advancement, it's still really good to put that process in your engineering notebook. And also a couple of competitions we've brought like a monitor and played our promote video at our pit, which is again very visual, and yeah, it just shows the judges that you really want, you know, to focus on everything, and it's another award that really just is about inspiring other people. Inspire Award. No.
Our next question is from Max, and he is asking how big our team is and if we have roles or titles.
Yeah, so our team we're 14 people this season. Last year we were 13. We have four roles on our team. So we have the team lead, and then so they're in charge of basically making sure our team doesn't fall apart and that we all aren't like fighting with each other. And then we have three different sub-teams: programming, build, and business. And then on each of those sub-teams, we have a lead. So we have the programming lead, the build lead, and the business lead.
Then our next question is about the past prompts for the Promote Award and some examples of those.
Some past prompts. I believe the one from this year was how has first impacted you?
Has first changed you, yes.
How has first changed you? And then what was the one from last year? Or from the year before that?
I believe it was it was like an if question, right?
Oh, it was if everyone in the world participated in first, what would the world be like? It was something along those lines. You can also probably look them up on the internet somewhere.
And a lot of teams will post their Promote and Compass awards to their YouTube channel. Ours is on our YouTube channel if you want to look at that from last season and the previous season. But especially like creating Promote Awards, that's really helpful to look at the past year's winners and such, to, you know, see what the top winning teams are creating. So YouTube's a really good thing for that. I think you can really just search FTC Promote Award 20 like 19 or 20, and it should come up with a bunch from different teams. So that's a really good resource for that.
Yep.
So that is about all the questions that we have. Just a reminder for the people watching, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We will answer them as best we can. If not, we will bring them up to our speakers, and that can be anything that you need to have repeated, or anything that you didn't understand, or just something that you want to know about.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our engineering notebook section now. We understand Game Manual 1 just came out today, and there's quite a few changes from last year, but everything about the engineering notebook hasn't been released yet, so all of this information is going to be from this previous year. So we're really not sure what it's going to look like. We'll have to wait until the season, gets started. But what is an engineering notebook? So the engineering notebook is a documentation of the team's robot design and records the time spent doing research, outreach, team meetings, and plans for growth. Why do we need an engineering notebook? So your engineering notebook is something that holds everything your team has done throughout the season in one place. This is submitted to each competition and is really there to showcase your team's journey, the ups and downs, how you've improved, and what you've learned along the way. So this is one of our notebooks from last year. Just going to show you really quickly, but it just basically has our team on the front, and it's that. But our notebook was pretty big last year, but obviously we'll talk about the requirements for that, at least the previous year.
Yeah, so the engineering notebook requirements last year, there weren't many, but there are a few. So you cannot have more than 2 notebooks at a competition, and so the game manual will hold the size restrictions for each notebook. And if you're submitting your control award, if you put it in like a separate binder or notebook, it will be considered as one of your 2 engineering notebooks. So that is something to keep in mind. We usually put ours in one of like the plastic slots in like the front of one of our notebooks. And then the only other requirement is that your team number must appear on the outside cover. And then there are some award-specific requirements with the engineering notebook. So for Inspire and some of the other awards, you must have some engineering content that includes the design process. You have to have a team section that includes information about the team and some outreach activities. You have to have a team plan or like a business plan. It's not required, but it's like I said, it's needed for some awards. I linked so FIRST has something called a self-assessment, which you can go through your engineering notebook, and it will show you like some of the requirements and then some of the recommendations FIRST gives you, and you can check off whether or not you have them.
You're muted.
Sorry, thank you so much. Okay, so the summary page used to be required, but it's not anymore. At least as far as we know. We're not really sure with this upcoming season, but it wasn't the previous years. So, however, we do still recommend creating one. This is a picture of the one we had last year, I believe. I believe that's last year. Yes.
Yeah.
The judges won't look through your entire notebook. They don't have, that much time. So a short but sweet summary page is great for them to see your highlights. This is a great place to include a lot of visuals that are appealing rather than a whole sheet of words like we talked about the pit before, the pit displays. This is also the place to put the things you are most proud of, that you have accomplished, and things you really want to highlight to the judges for awards. We also have the team plan. So this is something that we call the business plan. It outlines your team's goals and acts as a guide for team decisions. If you have been around for a couple of years, you also put your team's history in this document. So you'll update that each year round. This is something we generally share with our potential sponsors, and it also includes our budget and how we spend their donations.
So what do you include in your team's engineering notebook? All right, so organization and highlights are pretty important. It's important to have a clear and complete table of contents so that judges are able to get to where they want to look in your engineering notebook. So if you like mention something in your presentation, like, oh, well, we have this, but we're not going to talk about it too much because we've got limited time. You can check it out on this page of our engineering notebook. They can go to the table of contents and look there. You can also use binder tabs to mark sections because that's helpful. There's all of those. I don't think I really need to read them aloud, but they're all very important. And then bookmark pages that you want to make sure judges see. So once again, they're not going to be able to read the whole thing, so it's helpful to have guiding things there for them.
Okay, so our team section is where we include our team bios. Here you can see one from a recent alumni, Erin. We add what sub-team she was, her picture, and then the team member will write a short bio about themselves that can include grade, hobbies, future plans, what she likes about FIRST, or really anything to make that personal connection. We also put mentor bios in here, which also usually include their career experience and how long they've worked with the team.
So a big chunk of the engineering, well, not a big chunk, but a good chunk for like Think Award and all the design awards is your engineering design section. So in this section, you're going to want to be very thorough, and you're going to include every iteration of the robot from when you first saw the game and started thinking about what you're going to do to the days before the last competition. You want to include as many visuals as you possibly can from this. So you're going to want to do charts, pictures of math, CAD drawings, CAD models, anything that you've used to come up with a design you're going to want to put into this section. And mainly it's used to highlight your journey from the very first time you put a screw with something together to your finished robot at the competition. And you're also going to want to organize this chronologically by mechanism or your overall robot iterations. Last year we did it by mechanism. So we would say iteration 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for this mechanism, and then we move on to the next mechanism, iteration 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we do that for all of our mechanisms. And then we would take a SolidWorks drawing of each part, like custom part we made, and we would put those all in a section at the end.
So the software section is another part of the engineering notebook. So it's going to be an overview of the programming process. So the journey that you take in your programming. You're going to show your iterations within code, so how the code changes over time. Flowcharts and diagrams are very helpful because, you know, saying that you did one thing and then like it might do this, or, you know, like explaining all that in words is kind of tough. Flowcharts do it very quickly and concisely. Implementation of sensors and algorithms are also great things to include because those are fun for programming. And then configuration of motors and servos are also things that you're going to want to include in the software section.
So for each outreach event that we attend, we create an entry detailing things such as how many team members were present, how much time we spent there, and how many people we reached. as well as what we did, things we learned, and differences we made. We created a template. So all of this is an example of one from last year, and all of our outreach events have that same template. So they all are similar, and it's a good way to keep track of how many hours you've spent doing outreach. And then we also recommend to put in pictures with these to make it more visually appealing. And then similar to outreach entries, sorry, Jenna. Similar to outreach entries, we also assign a team member to write an entry for each of our meetings or practices. So usually we'll have one for each sub-team, and then we'll have like a list that people, like we'll have a rotating list of who's doing the entry for tonight. And you know, it includes parallel ideas such as what we accomplished and plans for the future. For these two entries, we use just a Google form that we make at the beginning of the year, and then it's super easy for team members to get a link to that, fill out the Google form, and it's the same every time, so it's, you know, easy to do, and it also makes organization really great.
All right, do we have any questions, moderators?
There's nothing in the chat right now, but I will let you know as soon as something pops in.
All right, moving on.
Okay, how do you organize your engineering notebook? So you can obviously organize your engineering notebook however you want, but our team has found that the best for us is creating a folder in Google Drive to keep all of our documents in. Then when we come close to competition season, we'll put everything we want to print in one long Google Doc so that all the pages can print in order and we can just easily put them in our binder. Organization is key because it can definitely get very overwhelming when you start to collect a large handful of documents, and you want to make sure that from the beginning they're all in places where you know, and so you're not losing any documents.
So next up is things to keep in mind. So you got to keep in mind that the notebook is a live document. The main objective is to showcase your journey. So as you go through a competition, add an entry about the competition. As you change your robot, you know, keep the stuff in about the old iteration, but also add stuff about the new iteration. Visuals, visuals, visuals. It's really important because no one wants to read, kind of going back to the pit boards, walls and walls of text. One of our members last year was really good at visuals. If someone can find the like make it beautiful, I don't remember exactly what I can't remember it, but it's, if Claire, if you can find what I'm talking about, that'd be great. If you can just read my mind, that'd be great. Sorry.
Making it aesthetic.
Yeah. Have a consistent theme. Visuals and charts are good. Have section summaries. So at the start of each section, have a summary of what it is so that judges can at least read that if they're not going to read the whole section. Every page used to need to be signed and dated by team members, but now it does not. It's still probably good to sign and date daily entries, but other stuff is probably okay to not sign and date. More questions?
So I saw that we have one about how do you make your engineering notebook stand out. And so there's a couple ways to do this. One is don't focus on the quantity. You need to focus on the quality of your engineering notebook. And one way you can really make it stand out is, like I said, developing that aesthetic for your notebook. and like focusing on making sure everything looks professional and feels professional about your notebook. Everything's the same font, the same colors, the same everything, and you have just a single format for your whole notebook. So just making sure that your notebook looks professional and you're focusing on what's in the notebook instead of what's the size of your notebook.
Okay, the next question that we have is from Kay Lamb, and she asks, what is the best way to get an elaborate or complicated concept into your notebook simply without making it like just a block of writing and making it too much stuff?
Yes, so there's a couple ways we do this. So number one is in our engineering section, we include lots of photos, and then we kind of like caption what's going on in the photo. And we also like bold certain things in our big text. So we do write big chunks of text in our engineering section. We bold all the key words, so it's kind of like bullet points. And if you're just skimming through, instead of reading through the whole paragraph, you'll get what's the idea of what's in the paragraph just by reading a few of those bolded words.
So Max to automate asks, what do you mean when you talk about equations? Sorry about my dog in the background. So when we talk about equations, we mean math equations that describe real world robotics applications. So like what I was talking about, the coefficient of friction, we did that through some equations and calculations. We put that in the notebook. If you're doing distance calculations, geometry stuff, that should go in the notebook. We've also done torque calculations and put that in the notebook. On the programming side, we have calculated out trajectories for the robot for auto. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to get those calculations.
I think that's all that we have for now. If
Could I say something about the daily entries one? It's we do have a Google form, like the moderator said. I didn't catch which one, but like it's the Google form. It's like you can write. It's very helpful because you can say this person wrote this entry in like a list, and you can just click on the person who wrote it and have participants. We usually ask those kinds of questions, and we usually ask questions like, what did you do this meeting? What did you talk about this meeting? And we also have it one entry per sub team, I believe. Yeah. So each meeting we have an entry for that. We don't write one every day. We just write one for each meeting. So.
All right, so next up and lastly, we're going to talk about your first competition. So this will be going over how in-person competitions normally work. If you guys are second or third year teams, you know most of this stuff, so I won't feel too bad if you need to do something else. But I think there's probably some good information in here for everyone, and especially for rookie teams, it's good to know. So there are different types of competitions. There's league meets, qualifying tournaments, state tournaments, and of course worlds. League meets we're not as familiar with because we don't do them in our area. We do qualifying tournaments, but you'll have a lot more league meets in a season, and all you do at league meets is play matches, or sometimes you will do practice judging, but it won't count for anything. And then you will have a league championship, which is very similar to a qualifying tournament, except some of your matches or league meets are there for your qualifying matches. So at a qualifying tournament, you do at least 5 rounds of qualifying matches. So that's random matches where you have random alliance partners and random opponents. And if it's a league championship, some of your qualifying matches will be from your other league meets. You have judging, which we've spent a bit talking about, I think. And then you have elimination matches. So elimination matches are where the top 4 ranked teams, according to the criteria in Game Manual 1, which was released today, are able to pick one team and then another team. So to pick 2 teams to be on their alliance, and then it's just best 2 out of 3 a bracket. Then you got the award ceremony and the end of the competition. There's a varying number of teams that advance to the next level. It really just depends on the competition, how many teams will advance. I mean, sometimes it's as many as like 5 or 6 or 7. Sometimes it's as few as 2 or 1. And those are distributed according to the advancement order that we talked about earlier. So next up, how do you prepare for a competition? This is really important. So you really should have your engineering notebook, pit displays, and robot done at least a week before you leave. And when I'm talking about robot, I also mean auto as well. So really you should have your robot done at least 2 weeks, so you can give your programmers at least a week for auto. As a programmer, I wish there's more than that. So in the week leading up to the competition, you want to do driver practice and presentation practice. So for driver practice, simulate matches or run drills on like a certain part that you may be struggling with. Presentation practice, have everyone line up like you would in a presentation room and just pretend it's a presentation. Have your presenters give the presentation and have whoever you can find ask questions as if they were judges and test people's ability to answer their questions. Another thing is to figure out what everyone is going to do at the competition. So people can do a few different things. You're going to need somewhere between 1 and 3 people to drive the robot / coach, or even be a human player. You need some people to scout, and this is really important. So you want people to be watching other teams and seeing how they're doing and making a list of who they think would be good to pick. And even if you think, oh, I'm not going to be in the top 4, trust me, you may be surprised. The formula can be a little bit finicky, and you can be surprised. And if you're in the top 4, you really want to know who's the best so that you can have the best chance of actually winning elimination matches. Then you pack up. So you want a pack list so you don't forget anything. And you want to organize everything you bring with you to competition so you have quick access to it at competition. You want to pack any tools that your robot may need, all spares, especially replacement wires. Wires are really fragile and they are likely to break in a robot's first robot-on-robot contact. So having replacements for them is good. Duct tape is also a very useful thing to fix your robot in a pinch, and all your stuff for your pit. Another thing that's often overlooked is to have a robot cart. So if you could click on the link. So this is an example of a robot cart. Some people make their own, some people buy them like this, but it's basically just a cart you can put your robot on. And so you can go from your pit to the competition field, from your pit to inspection, wherever you need to go with your robot so that you don't have to carry it in your arms. It can be really cumbersome and dangerous for the robot. You also can have some tools on there for any last minute changes, extra batteries or phones, all are very helpful. So this is just a rough outline of the competition schedule. First up, you check in, you set up your pit, you do your robot inspection, and maybe get some practice matches in. There's practice fields where you can practice with other teams that are at that competition, and that's a really good thing to do. And you can also talk to those teams and have those teams get to know you, which makes them more likely to pick you. Then you got judging, which once again we've talked about a bit. Opening ceremonies is fun. Sing the national anthem, all that good stuff. And then it's match time. As soon as the match schedule is released, which is usually maybe about an hour before matches start, go and talk to any team that you're partnered with so you can discuss strategy during the match and make sure your autos are compatible and won't run into each other. You really want to be prepared for anything to go wrong in a competition or anything to go right. And you can have to do a lot of things in a little time. Turnaround time between matches can be as little as 5 minutes, which is not a lot of time if you have to fix a broken part of your robot, even if it's a simple fix. It's also really good to scout other teams like I was talking about before. And when you're thinking about whether to do a repair, it's really a risk versus reward equation. So if your robot can still drive around and it just can't score as well, and you have 10 minutes between your next match, maybe don't risk breaking everything in the robot and preventing it from driving to fix that one thing. But on the other hand, if your robot can't drive at all and it's completely out of commission, or if you have an hour and a half because it's lunchtime, then maybe go for that repair. After that are elimination matches. So top 4 teams are called up. They'll pick their picks, and there will be a bracket. So first seed alliance versus 4th seed alliance, best 2 out of 3, and then they move on to finals. Second seed alliance versus 3rd seed alliance, they'll move on to finals, and then the winner of those 2 will compete against each other, best 2 out of 3, to win the robot version of the competition. Then there's the awards ceremony, and then you pack up and go home.
So gracious professionalism, if you don't know what it is very like a core part of FIRST. And it's something that you really need to know like the back of your hand. So the definition of it is demonstrating gracious attitudes and behaviors during competitions, respecting others and letting that respect show through actions, and making valued contributions in a way that is pleasing to others. Basically, is what it's saying is that you need to be nice to all the other teams and they'll all be nice to you. And you're really playing against the game instead of playing against other teams. And so why is it important to be graciously professional at competitions? A big thing is that one, it's just a good thing to do is to be nice to other teams, because when you're nice to other teams, they'll be nice to you. And say you break a part on your robot and you don't have one, you can borrow one from another team. And you can, if you're nice to them, they'll let you borrow it. But if you're not as nice, they might not let you. And that's why we're always gracious professionals to everyone. And if someone requests something, then you'll give it to them. Another thing is judges are always watching. There will be people walking around the pits. There will be people seated watching the fields. And there's people in the judging room. You never know where the judges are. Sometimes they look like normal people. So you really have to be on your best behavior and showing, because like you can not get like qualified for Inspire if you're being rude to other teams. And another thing is it builds respect for your team, which is a huge thing. You want to be respected. And it extends even beyond your team. It all applies to all your parents, mentors, sponsors, all of that. And like I said, it's cooperation over competition, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And especially be nice to the volunteers, because it is so much work to set up and run a competition. And you all should to practice this in everyday life too, because it's a great skill to have.
So in conclusion, not conclusions, competitions, they can be stressful, they can be tiring, but they are very rewarding. They're really fun. Take notes of the competition and figure out what to do next time. Always be trying to better yourself, and do a debrief after the competition using those notes. Talk to your other team members what you think went well, what you think you could improve on, what you think went not so well. You really want to stay organized, keep a level head. If you need to take a deep breath and kind of think through what you're going to do, feel free to do it. It's much better than running around like a chicken with its head cut off. And talk to the best teams there. Always try to make connections, and also learn from other teams. See what their robots like, see what their pits are like, how they talk and interact with other teams, what they've done for outreach and awards, all that stuff. And just remember, overall, this is supposed to be a fun learning experience, and so have fun. And this is a beautiful picture of having fun and making friends pre-COVID.
before we get into any of the questions, I want to elaborate on one from earlier about how to, like, if you say you're working on a big project, how do you make the daily entries not be repetitive? And so say you're working on the drivetrain. You want, instead of writing an entry about how you're working on the drivetrain every day, you want to break it into as small as parts as you possibly can. So maybe day one, you're saying, oh, we started designing with this design and we started brainstorming ideas for mechanism drivetrains or omni drivetrains, which we'll get into on another session. And then next, you'll be like, okay, now we're on a design review with our mentors. And so they're a design review we'll also talk more about, but basically your mentors are asking you tough questions about your designs. And then once you actually start building, it's not, instead of writing your entries about how we're continuously building a drivetrain, you'll say, oh, this day we're installing and tensioning our chains and belts. And this day we're building the general structure of the drivetrain. So you want to break down these large tasks like a drivetrain into much smaller bite-sized pieces, like build the structure, add the wheels, stuff like that.
And another good thing is any problems you have during that time, talk about those and how you overcame them, because you're always going to have problems and you're always going to overcome them. And that's a really good thing to talk about in the engineering notebook.
That's a huge thing for the Think Award, is hitting a roadblock and how do you overcome it.
So sorry. I just saw this question that just popped up. Are we meeting? Yeah, okay. So he kind of answered it. But, something that obviously this year, very different, but in the past, we've done a lot of stuff over the summer for our team before the season even started, making those connections with businesses. Businesses' fiscal year just reset, and so it's a good time to go up to them, but make those connections, because it's really great to get a head start on that because once the season kickoff happens, you're gonna be just go, trying to get that robot out, and the programming and still trying to figure out outreach. So right now even though all of our meetings are through Zoom, we are still trying our best to keep up with documentation about what we do, because we're still trying to plan events like this that we can write about and such. So.
Okay, our next question is from Maxwell, and he says that they have a format from FLL, but they're wondering if they should recycle that format or if they should come up with a new one.
I mean, it really kind of depends on what the format is. I haven't done FLL, so I'm not too familiar with what the requirements are. But if it's kind of a daily entry format, it's probably fine. If it looks nice, maybe you can use some of the aesthetic design from it. You can even maybe email it to us and kind of ask us what we think. It's kind of hard to tell without having it in front of us, but you probably could reuse it, but you definitely want to evaluate it and see what is good about it and what maybe can be improved. And you always want to improve yourself.
Okay, real quick, can I add something onto that? So Chris had some good points. I'd say that your FLL documentation is going to be different from your FTC documentation because you're doing different things. So you could have good formats for putting everything together, but you want to make sure that it's tailored to what you're actually doing. So that's where you can go and look at other resources, and like Chris said, share it with us if you want to. That way we can give you some feedback, or you can find some feedback of your own of, hey, this is what we should modify this to be. But since you have something, that's a great start. That's more than most teams have.
That was one of our alumni, Nick, talking, by the way. So he's here.
He's also a mentor.
That's true.
And he mentors an Indiana team. All right, do we have any other questions, mods?
There's nothing as of yet. We have one that.
Yeah. So we will be I think it's next session. We'll be going a lot more in depth into CAD and design.
There's also one, if you're done, Jonah, there's also one I wanted to like go deeper on. It's like about choosing alliances. So choosing alliance, just because you may be in like one of the top spots, like if you're not one of the alliance captains, but you're still in the top spot, I mean, that really doesn't mean you're going to be chosen for an alliance. Alliances are really chosen based on research, like scouting that teams have done, and to make sure that those teams are meshing really well with your robot. We have been to many a competition where a very, a lower ranked team has been chosen as an alliance pick because they are consistent and they work well with the team's robot. And so, even if you, again, it's like you, even if you're like low on the list, it's really, you still have a good chance if you form those connections and really prove that you can be a great ally.
Yeah, to further elaborate on that, like that's the scouting stuff. So what our team did was we had Google Forms that we had some of our team members fill out. So they watched all the matches and they were like, did this robot do this? And then they're like, yes, they did it. And then we're like, that's a good robot. So like, if they're like really reliable, those are the kind of robots that you're going to want to get on your alliance if you're in the position of choosing an alliance. And also a thing that you can think about when you're constructing your own robot, just make it reliable and you will more likely get chosen for alliances, and that's always a good place to be.
Always better to have a reliable robot that scores somewhere in the middle of the points than to have a robot that half the time scores the most points and half the time scores no points.
Yeah, that's especially true with the newer scoring system that they're implementing this year, where your ranking points is just your alliance's score from each match added together.
Yep. Do we have any other questions?
I believe that's it.
All right, if we've missed anything, feel free to put it in there now. Here's some good materials to check out. Oh, that's an interesting question.
Okay, that is not against rules in the competition. We love giving out stuff at our pits. I'm pretty sure candy's allowed, right?
Yeah, but they may change it because of the pandemic, I think is his question.
True.
We have no clue. Normally we have business cards and buttons. Some teams have had some really cool things like pop sockets or laser etched keychain stuff, but so that's really uncertain right now. There's another great question. The alliance is only based on the robot. So this is the robot game. Totally separate than judging. So being ranked in the top 4, there's some criteria in the engineering notebook about how you are ranked, and then teams will choose who they think will work best with them to score the most points and beat up the other teams that they're going against.
But as we mentioned before, like Inspire Award is, the top of that list. So that's just a very well-rounded team. We've definitely seen teams where they've struggled in the robot competition a little bit, but they've still placed in Inspire. So the robot competition is a very big part of it. But you also want to make sure you're being well-rounded. And so a lot of the stuff you do outside of that competition is really important. Oh.
That's a question. The best thing to do is the head ref. So there will be a head ref at competition. You'll probably want to pull him or any ref you really can get to, or some other admin of the competition. Pull them aside, tell them what's going on. Say it politely. You don't want to be like, this team is cheating and I know it. You want to be, very polite about it and not very accusatory. But yeah, that's a hard thing to do.
So the outreach question, now obviously we're a 6th-year team, and we have a lot of team members, but the previous season we did over 2,000 hours of outreach throughout the entire season. That wasn't just like before the first competition. Oh, that'd be scary. But it's, it's something that a lot of connections, some of that just comes with experience, because a lot of the outreach events that we've done previous years. And so we're like, we want to come back, and sometimes we're invited back and such. So, obviously don't stress about being like, we need outreach activities. But they are, I love them. So those hours don't include prep work. They're just the actual activities. And that is, we take the time that we spent and then how many people were there. So if we had like 3 team members and we spent 3 hours, that'd be 9 hours for that thing, because we combine them. So yeah.
I will say though, outreach hours is not at all the end all be all of how well your outreach is doing. The most important thing is what impact your outreach has and how it helped others, and spreads them. All right, any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right, well, I think this was a pretty good first workshop. 2 weeks from now, we will have build and design workshop, which will be tons of fun. And then 2 weeks from there, we will have programming workshop. Yeah, feel